Hey, I'm here to illustrate on my Wilson 2 something I've realized has been going on for a long time. It's pretty much with all of the Wilson 2s. I imagine if you bought the standard kit from Marty. Has to do with the end stops that we have on these things. This is one that comes with it. I'm sure it's probably just like yours if you bought this same kit. And they're probably one of the most common ones out there. Essentially, you've got a little red button there that actually does the switching, and then you've got this lever arm here. Well, the lever arm's there to increase or decrease the amount of force necessary to close that switch. However, the problem comes in on the Wilson 2, the way if you have the rack and pinion set up. I think it's probably the same way if you've got the servo set up. Let's take a flat surface here. When you push this down and the switch comes straight down, the lever arm is really not doing you any good, because you've then got to push it hard enough to close the switch directly. So the lever arm, really, if it was like this, you'd get your lever arm in mechanical advantage, but you don't when it's like this. As opposed to a switch like this, it's got a little roller bearing right here. When you push that and holding the switch level, the only thing it hits is the end of the lever arm, so you still keep your mechanical advantage. Well, actually on this one you don't, because the button is right below. I chose a bad one there to illustrate the point. Here's one where the switch is way back here and you've got this lever arm. See, so you can have the switch flat and you still get your mechanical advantage. Thing is, what I've been noting, and I think if you look at yours, if you haven't already seen it, when the Z-axis comes down to probe the bed, it actually deflects the bed quite a little bit. And so we're getting inaccurate readings as far as the height of our bed, because this switch isn't actually clicking until it's really squashing. And to make it even worse, this lever arm is just a folded piece of metal that has a hole in each side of these little wings here, and there's a little plastic nubbin that sticks through those. Well, in order to push that switch from this position, this comes down really flat, but it really doesn't. You've almost got to deform this part before you can actually get the switch flat. Well, I take that back. It seemed that way to me before on one of my other switches. It may have been that the lever arm was bent a little bit. At any rate, we're definitely losing this mechanical advantage, and we do deflect the bed. So, long-winded, probably unnecessary explanation. You're probably way ahead of me. So what I've done is I've set up a dial gauge here. This particular gauge reads 1,007 inch. So each little marking on this is 1,007 inch, and if you want to think in millimeters, each little graticule there is 0.025, or about a quarter of a tenth of a millimeter for each one. Is that right? 0.25 would be a quarter of a millimeter. Yes. 0.025 is a quarter of a tenth. Right. So, it doesn't take much at all, as you can see, to move that. I'm just barely touching that. Here's a 9-volt battery. Everybody knows about what they weigh. Let's see what it does. See, there's 2,007 inch, so that's about a half a tenth of a millimeter. Just the weight of that. So it doesn't take much to deflect that bed. And you would think it's the springs. It's not. Mostly, it's the MDF. The whole thing. See? I don't think I'm depressing that spring at all. If you squeeze these springs, they are really strong compared to how much the entire bed can go. It takes almost nothing. Okay, so, and this wouldn't be that big a deal, except we're primarily interested in this measurement because of our first layer. In the first layer, you want that well within a millimeter or a tenth, especially if you're doing 0.1 millimeter layer height. You want your first layers to be really spot on. Actually, you want them all to be spot on. So I'm going to bring the, well, going to make this even more long-winded. Let me tell you what I've done so far. Obviously, I've set up my dial gauge right here. I've also I've unplugged the Z-axis, the Z limits probe switch, the bed probe switch. I've unplugged that, and instead I've connected this LED through the Z-axis switch, which you can't see. It's above the top of the screen right now. It's right up there. I've disconnected the Z-axis switch to light this LED. Since it's a normally closed switch, believe it or not, that LED is lit right now. It'll turn red when I turn it off by pressing the Z switch. See there? It's just the way the camera's looking at it. It makes it look kind of green when it's on. So if you see it red, that's when the switch is activated. When I let go, the LED's on. Okay, so now I'm going to bring down. Oh, the other thing I did was I reversed both the connections on both of the Z-axis motors in order to defeat Marlin's refusal to allow you to move the Z-axis past 0, which we're going to have to do for this case. So you can't see what I'm doing here, but what I'm doing is I'm going to, on my screen up here, I'm going to prepare and then move axis, and I'm going to move 1 millimeter, and I'm going to move Z, and I'm actually going in the positive Z direction as far as the machine thinks, but I'm actually coming down here, and pretty soon you'll see the axis coming down, because I've got it hooked up backwards. Here it comes, top of the screen there, you can see it. And hopefully I got this set up right so I don't crash my dial gauge with my Z-axis. Oh, you'll notice also I've removed the extruder and everything in the front of that so that we can have a better look at that switch and see what's going on. Hopefully we can see it after it gets down past the dial gauge. Okay, it's almost there. Okay, now, you may not be able to see it very well, but I've got it where the lever is just starting to deflect. It's just hit the glass. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my menu. I'm going to select move 0.1 millimeter. And then we'll go down to Z. Okay, now I'm going to bring Z down. And what we want to do is look at, well, let me get my dial gauge adjusted first here to 0. Actually, I'm going to bring the Z back up so it's off the bed entirely. Okay, now I'm going to adjust the dial gauge to 0. What we're going to see is how much this bed moves before the switch turns that LED off. Okay. Finally, now I've lost my menu. Selection. Okay, prepare. Move axis. 0.1 millimeter. Move Z. Okay, here we go. Now we're going down. Okay, levers just hit the bed. Continuing down. You can see the needle moving already, and the lever hasn't even contacted the switch yet. It's not depressed the switch. And keep your eye on that LED right there until it goes out. There. Okay. Probably can't read it off the screen. Yeah, you can too. It's not too bad. That looks like 15 thousandths of an inch. It's almost 16 thousandths of an inch. We'll call it 15 for the benefit of the doubt. It's actually a bit more. So 15 thousandths of an inch. And what did we say? Each thousandth of an inch is a quarter of a tenth. So 10 of them is a quarter of a millimeter, and half of that is an eighth of a millimeter. So we've got 3/8 of a millimeter right there. Almost half a mil error just in pushing the switch down. Now that's with the switch near the center of the bed. So basically I'm exerting some pressure on all 4 of those bed mounts. Situation would be a lot worse if I was over here probing the bed the way it, goes over here, then back there. If you're close to a corner, it's going to be probably considerably worse because most of your force is just going on one of these arms here. So what do we do about it? Well, you could get a more sensitive switch, but there's a very, very easy fix. And let me bring my switch back up here again for a minute real quick. That's not real quick, sorry. Pair. Move axis. One. Z. Okay. I'm going to bring it back up here. Bear with me. I'm going to move the camera pretty soon as I get it up high enough where I can get my hands in there to mess with it. Okay. Now, let's see if I can get a zoom in on that a little bit. I can't really zoom this thing. This is a really cheap webcam. Oops, I forgot. Okay. Yeah, give me a second here. I turned my knob too far, so I wanted to keep going after it got all the way to the top. New axis. Sorry about how long I'm taking to do this. I should have practiced this video a few times. Bear with me. Bring it down a little bit. Okay, so the simple fix is to simply bend it. Just take a pair of pliers. Give me a second here. There's another one. That's my other pliers. Darn. Here they are. Okay, so, well, let me just show you what I did to my x-axis. Let me see if I can remove this camera and get right up on here on the x-axis, because I've already done it to my x switch. See that? That's all you got to do. Just put that little bend in it. Now you can see it there. That's it. You get much more results, a lot less force. So let me go ahead and bend my Z switch now, and then we'll come back down and do another measurement. So give me a second here. If I can do this. Put my reading glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Give myself some more light here. Okay. This way. Darn. Make sure I got my pliers straight so I get a straight bend. I guess if you don't get a perfectly straight bend, it's really not going to matter. It's going to be consistent no matter what you do, even if it's hitting on a corner of the thing all the time. Okay. Let's see if I want it so it's not quite level. I think that's good enough, just like that, but I'm going to give it just a tiny bit more. And of course, when you do this, you're going to have to adjust in the firmware or in your menu what the height difference is between your switch and your Z offset, I think it's called, between your switch and your hot end. Okay, I've got that bent at a tiny bit of an angle, but I don't think it's going to make a darn bit of difference. It's just going to hit on one corner all the time. Okay, now let's bring it down and see what kind of measurement we get with it bent that way. I really don't know what the difference is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be better though.
because we're not pushing directly on the switch. Okay, I'm going to go move 1 millimeter, move Z, and down we come. Okay, let me get the camera back here. See what's going on. I've really got to Jesus set up the way my camera's done. With my tripod here, it's just awful. Sorry about this. Oh, that's pretty good. Hopefully it'll autofocus here in a minute. Let me get some of this bright light out here and let it adjust itself. That's better. Alright. Lost my menu again. Sometime I need to figure out how to go into the Marlin software or firmware and change the delay for this menu giving up on you due to inactivity, because you can't hardly take a breath without the thing going back to the main menu again. It's kind of, more often than not, it's not a convenience by any means. Hope I didn't turn that too far. I might crash. I'm gonna have to shut it off. I did. I turned it too far. Well, you can see how the bed washes. Alright, do it again. Sorry about this. Alright, I'm gonna have to twist these up by hand now. Let it call that 0 now. Gauge again. No, that's not the Z-axis doing that. That's me on this mechanical adjustment over here. Okay, so we got it zeroed. And let's get our LED where you can see it. Okay. And here we go. Hopefully this will be less deflection this way. Right there. Let's go back up. I'm going by 1/10 of a millimeter now. One at a time. There. Okay, so I'm reading 2/1000ths of an inch. So that is 1/2 of a 1/10 of a millimeter. So that's a big improvement from 15/1000ths of an inch to 2/1000ths of an inch just by putting that little bend in there. So if I was you guys and ladies, I think that's about the first thing I'd do to try to solve any kind of layer issues or first layer issues, especially. Make that little bend in that limit switch and you've improved it by a huge amount just by doing that. It's a very simple fix. A lot of work to set this up to show you that, but I figured it would be, you know, more instructive if you could actually quantize this and actually see how much difference that makes. The other thing is, you know, if you'll just check out your own Wilson, and I've got these springs, they're not very tight. I used to have them all the way down because of this flexion issue that I noticed right off the bat, but it really didn't do any good. So I put them, for this experiment, I've put them back up. But if you feel how hard it is to even budge that spring by pinching it versus this, if you're looking at my gauge there, it just doesn't hardly take anything. So this really probably needs a little improvement, folks. And I would think really the way this X is made here, I don't think it'd be that much heavier if this was just a solid piece of MDF. I think that might improve the situation tremendously. The other thing is, this is a piece of 1/4 inch or 6mm by 3/4 inch, or what's that, 18mm, something like that, aluminum. If you were to just take and cut a piece long enough to extend from near the middle out each one of these arms and just drill and screw it right into, bolt it through the MDF, I think that is stiffening it up tremendously, because this stuff ain't going to bend much at all compared to this stuff. So, but on the other hand, we got to figure too, this is mounted to a plastic thing to start with, so the whole thing probably could use a little redesign. But I mean, this is just so much better. That might just be all you need to make a huge improvement in your prints. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye for now.